Imagine you're a captured German soldier in 1943, thousands of miles from home in an American POW camp. You've been told your entire life that Americans are your mortal enemies, savage, brutal people who will torture and humiliate you. Then one summer afternoon, something happens that defies everything you believe about war, captivity, and your enemies. American women, civilians in summer dresses, walk through the gates of your prison camp. Not as guards, not as interrogators, but as entertainers. They're carrying sheet music and instruments, smiling as they set up a makeshift stage in your compound. The sight is so shocking that hundreds of battle-hardened German soldiers fall into stunned silence. What happens next will shatter these prisoners' understanding of America and change many of their lives forever. Because these women haven't come to mock or punish, they've come to sing, to share music, to treat enemy soldiers not as beasts, but as human beings capable of appreciating beauty. In Nazi Germany, such a thing would be unthinkable. But in America, it was happening right before their eyes. The prisoners, who expected hell. To understand the shock these German prisoners experienced, you need to understand what they expected from American captivity. Historical context from Nazi propaganda. Americans were portrayed as ruthless, and primitive POWs would face starvation and brutal treatment. Enemy civilians would show nothing but hatred. Cultural exchange with prisoners was impossible in civilized nations. What they actually found, based on U.S. War Department records and POW testimonials. When German prisoners arrived at American camps in places like Texas, Nebraska, and Iowa, they discovered orderly barracks with screened windows and sturdy bunks, regular meals with meat, bread, vegetables, even desserts, daily coffee, a luxury rare in wartime Europe. Opportunities to study English, read newspapers, play sports from documented POW interviews. One former prisoner recalled, "We expected chains and starvation. Instead, we found abundance that stunned us. More food than German civilians were receiving back home. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared them for what came next." The rumors started spreading through the barracks like wildfire. American communities wanted to send entertainers into the camps, musicians, choirs, even women. The very idea seemed impossible. The community initiative that shocked the world. Why did American communities do this? From historical records of wartime civilian programs, the concerts weren't military strategy. They were genuine community initiatives supported by religious groups. Churches saw it as Christian duty to show mercy even to enemies. Women's auxiliaries, patriotic societies wanted to demonstrate American cultural values, USO cooperation. Part of broader civilian support for military morale programs. Local communities. Towns near camps volunteered to provide entertainment. The American philosophy. Unlike Nazi Germany, where civilians were kept strictly separated from enemy prisoners, America demonstrated confidence in its security and values. From military records, some commanders initially opposed the programs, worried about discipline and security, but others argued that content prisoners were less likely to cause problems. The shocking part? In Nazi Germany, no woman would ever be permitted near captured enemies. The idea of cultural exchange with prisoners was condemned as weakness. Yet here were American women volunteering to enter compounds full of men who had been shooting at Allied soldiers just months before. The day everything changed, summer 1943. WWII, the first concert, documented in camp administrative records. When notices appeared on bulletin boards announcing a special cultural program, the German prisoners thought it was a joke. Then they saw wooden benches being carried into the recreation yard, a makeshift stage being assembled from planks guards, taking extra security precautions, cars arriving with civilian women carrying instruments and sheet music. The moment of truth, From preserved POW diaries and letters. When the camp gates opened, and American women in summer dresses walked through, carrying sheet music and wearing stylish hats, the psychological impact was immediate. One prisoner's diary entry, archived in National Archives. The smell of perfume and the sound of female laughter drifted across the wire, awakening something long dormant in the hearts of soldiers. Another wrote home, "I am astonished that Americans are foolish enough to let their women near enemy troops, but I must admit the experience was profoundly moving." For men who had been months or years without seeing women, the sight alone was overwhelming. The music that bridged enemy lines, what happened on that stage was unprecedented, from documented concert programs and eyewitness accounts. The opening. A young American woman sat at an upright piano and began playing Beethoven. German music, played with respect and skill by an enemy civilian. The effect was electric. Some prisoners lowered their heads, overwhelmed. Others straightened with pride, hearing their culture-honored ripples of astonishment moved through the crowd. Then came the cultural exchange. The program alternated between German and American traditions. Schubert's Ave Maria. Prisoners rose in silent respect. American folk songs like Home on the Range, Yankee Doodle. Nervous laughter from the audience, Silent Night, sung in both English and German. The most powerful moment. From multiple POW accounts, when the women began humming Silent Night, hundreds of German voices joined in, their words in German wove together with the English version sung by American civilians. Guards shifted uneasily, but even they couldn't deny the strange power of the moment. From camp records, the sound carried beyond the barbed wire, across fields into nearby towns. The shock of female presence. For the German prisoners, the presence of women was as shocking as the music itself. Based on psychological evaluations and interviews. The historical context. Many had been at the front for years. Some hadn't seen women. Since hurried goodbyes on train platforms in Nazi Germany, women were strictly shielded from foreign prisoners. The idea of civilian women voluntarily entering enemy camps was unthinkable. What stunned them most? From documented testimonials. The freedom. American women spoke casually, even addressing prisoners directly. One singer thanked the gentlemen for listening, calling them gentlemen instead of prisoners or enemies. The trust. Guards remained watchful but didn't interfere. Americans seemed confident that security was sufficient, trusting the situation in ways Germans couldn't imagine. The gesture that changed everything, from a preserved POW memoir. A violinist finished her performance, smiled warmly, and waved at the rows of soldiers. That small, casual wave shattered one prisoner's assumptions about America. He later wrote, "If America were truly what Nazi officials claimed, these women would not be here offering music and goodwill." The transformation. Through song, the concerts became regular events, and something began to shift. From camp administrative records and POW correspondence, the evolution. What started as performances became cultural exchanges. German prisoners asked permission to respond with songs of their own, Die Lorelei and German folk songs. Prisoners sang haunting choruses of traditional German music. The American visitors listened in rapt silence, applauding openly despite not understanding the words. The pattern that emerged. German soldiers sang wistful folk songs about the Rhine, and Black Forest American women replied with hymns and popular tunes. Each side revealed pieces of their culture to former enemies, from preserved letters, censored but still revealing. One prisoner wrote, "The sound of women's voices made me feel as though I was sitting at home again." Another noted, "To hear applause directed at a German song reminded me that our identity had not been erased by war." The psychological impact. For men reduced to numbers behind barbed wire, being recognized as human beings with traditions worth sharing was transformative. The military's dilemma. Behind the scenes, American military authorities debated these programs intensely. From classified military correspondence. The concerns. Security risks of bringing civilians near enemy soldiers. Potential for incidents or escape. Attempts questions about fraternization, blurring prisoner-host lines, whether such leniency weakened military authority. The benefits observed. From guard reports and camp statistics, content prisoners were less likely to resist or conspire, fewer arguments, and scuffles after concert evenings. Better cooperation with work details. Music accomplished what barbed wire alone could not. A guard's reflection from post-war memoirs. Those concerts were the only times I saw them look less like prisoners and more like ordinary human beings. The decision. Despite debates, concerts continued because their value outweighed the risks. Letters that never made it home. The emotional impact was captured in censored correspondence. From U.S. Army censorship records, what prisoners tried to tell their families. I have seen kindness from the most unlikely of places. Life in America is not what we were told. I heard German folk songs applauded by an enemy audience. I no longer know what to believe about the enemy, the letters that got through. Some managed to slip past censors, astonishing German families who expected tales of brutal treatment. Family reactions. For wives and mothers struggling with hunger in Germany, the idea that their captured men were listening to concerts seemed surreal, even unbelievable. The private impact. From preserved diaries. Many prisoners admitted the concerts had shaken them deeper than they cared to acknowledge. They lay awake imagining wives back home, their longing sharpened by the voices they'd heard in camp. The cultural bridge that changed lives. These concerts became more than entertainment. They became survival tools. From psychological studies of former POWs, what the music provided. Something to anticipate in lives stripped of choice memories that served as threads to hold on to during hard labor, a reminder that they were part of the world, not cut off from it. The deeper realization. Many prisoners privately admitted that if American women could treat them with such dignity, perhaps everything they'd been taught was wrong. From historical analysis, these experiences contributed significantly to post-war German acceptance of democracy and alliance with the West. The contrast that haunted them. In Germany, rigid separation, fear, propaganda about enemy savagery. In America, trust, cultural exchange, treating enemies as capable of appreciating beauty. The long-term impact on history. When the war ended and repatriation began, these memories traveled back to Germany. From post-war surveys and interviews, what former POWs told their families. Tales of orderly camps and steady meal stories. Of German folk songs applauded by Americans' accounts. Of being addressed as gentlemen by smiling American women. Memories. Of Silent Night, sung in both languages. The historical significance. From academic studies of post-war attitudes, these accounts carried enormous weight because they contrasted so sharply with Nazi propaganda. For Germans returning to rubble and scarcity, memories of concerts in American camps took on symbolic meaning. The broader lesson, former POWs became unofficial ambassadors, their experiences helping some Germans reconcile with defeat and cultivate respect for democratic values. One former prisoner's reflection from 1970s interviews. In a camp in Texas, I heard Silent Night sung in both English and German, and in that moment I realized the war would one day end, and we would all be human again. The strategy behind the kindness. What made these concerts particularly effective was their authenticity. From military psychology assessments, why it worked. Not propaganda or manipulation, genuine community. Initiative demonstrated American confidence, and cultural values showed democracy's practical advantages over authoritarianism proved. Abundance and humanity could coexist with military strength. The message it sent, America was so strong it could afford to be generous to those who had tried to destroy it. The psychological warfare aspect, without intending it, these concerts accomplished what no interrogation could. They made German soldiers question everything they'd believed about their enemies. Conclusion: when humanity conquered hatred, the documented experience of German POWs attending American concerts reveals profound truths about warfare, humanity, and the power of cultural exchange. Based on comprehensive historical records, what these men discovered: their enemies weren't the savages, portrayed by propaganda. American women could show remarkable courage and generosity. Music could bridge divides that warfare had created. Democracy produced a different kind of strength, one that included mercy, the historical legacy. These concerts became part of a larger narrative that helped reshape post-war German attitudes and contributed to successful Allied occupation policies. The ultimate irony: Nazi Germany had spent enormous resources convincing its people that Americans were brutal enemies. But when German soldiers actually experienced American treatment, it accomplished what no Allied propaganda could. It converted enemies into witnesses of democratic values. The lesson that transcends time. True strength isn't just about military might, it's about having the confidence to maintain your humanity even when dealing with those who tried to destroy you. For the men who sat behind barbed wire and heard American women sing German songs, they learned that even in the darkest conflicts, enemies can recognize each other not as faceless foes, but as people capable of song, kindness, and bridging worlds divided by war. The concerts ended when the war did, but the memories lasted lifetimes. Many former prisoners carried those evenings with them forever, proof that humanity could survive even in the most unlikely places. Sung in 2 languages under the stars of a Texas summer night.